the increasing number of Chinese citizens that are leaving the country try to reach America. The stats is really staggering. Coming again. Our plan has always been that we would fly to Ecuador and then we would start to travel with them by land into Colombia. And then from Colombia, through the Darien Gap, we would enter Panama. And then the idea was to then pick it up from Mexico, see how they make across that sort of final step, the most difficult step, in order to reach the US. Now I've spotted about 5 or 6 Chinese people. That's the dad with the baby. That's them. There they are.
Can't stop at the bridge, it's too dangerous for you boys.
We cannot stop here. Did you get a shot of them?
It's an area that economy is built on the trafficking of migrants, and they are very sensitive of having their operations exposed.
You got a big behind you.
I never experienced danger in any of my previous productions before.
We felt like there's always people watching us wherever we go, and we need to be more careful with what we're doing in the public.
This is all private land, by the way, but not to worry about.
To be honest, when I saw the brief of this documentary, I had a feeling that it's not going to happen because there was so much unknowns.
They're just right there. I'm gonna have to admit that I probably spend an embarrassing amount of time each day on Chinese short video apps. From mid to late 2022, I started seeing these videos of Chinese people crossing what appears to be a dense tropical jungle alongside with a vast number of South Americans. They hashtagged it either 走线 or walk the line, and that really piqued my interest.
过来，好，儿子，到美国了，然后我们去找警察吧。
I think what fundamentally changed about China over the past few years, it's no longer that rising optimistic country and the population.
你们是为什么来？
在中国太卷了，所以来到美国寻找自由了。
And I think the way we did it, because we travel with them, we were able to capture all of these conflicts and emotions and the change of minds in real time. In that aspect, I think you do have a more realistic portrayal of what the journey is like. There has not been existing sort of reports about it to an extent that you will find on any other issue. But to the extent that it wasn't so difficult for us is because I have access to the same social media apps that they use.
我们现在坐这个船，现在6点，等一下都进入雨林了，全是泥巴路，非常危险，非常危险。所以接水河。
we were able to sort of access this information the same way the migrants would.
我不知道走了10几个小时了，好像11个小时了，没有办法，真的走不动。
After learning about how dangerous the trip is, how concerned about safety were you?
Oh no, I just thought it was super exciting. There are people who run towards the fire and the people who run away from it, right? All of us chose to do what we do. We're the type of people who would run towards it.
You're okay with being filmed?
It's on now.
Okay.
My team leader called me and said, Sean, there's a project that is happening in South America. But he said, before you say yes, I'm going to send you some clips. Look at it and tell me if you're going to say yes tomorrow. So I went home, and these were clips on the Darien Gap. People crossing, and it was pretty horrifying, you know, people dying. There's like dead bodies and snakes.
When I thought about South America, Narcos from Netflix came to mind.
Straight away in my head, it's like cartel, drug lord, you know.
I very quickly read up on it, and the first things that came up on my newsfeed were the ongoing political instability problems in Ecuador. There was a political assassination, there were car bombs that went off in the capital, and then reality really came crashing in, like, wow, this is no joke, you know, this is Narcos in real life.
And it is true to an extent. There's a lot of crime there. Kidnapping, murder, robbery.
But at the same time, it's interesting.
I never experienced danger in any of my my previous productions before.
I couldn't say no to an adventure of a lifetime. And the next day I said yes.
My name's Adnan Nazar. I'm the security consultant for the trip that we did for Walk the Line. So I was a military medic in the British Army for 11 years. During that time, I had 4 operational tours, Bosnia, Kosovo, and I was a platoon commander for 2 tours of Iraq. Suspicious behaviour. You know, a lot of the times when I was working in Iraq, somebody would step forward and they would throw a grenade. The decision was made that I would come in at the very beginning, starting with pre-deployment training here in country, teaching the team a little bit about jungle survival, how to manage yourself, what kit and equipment to take. Routes had to be approved, security background checks on people working with us.
I was told the porters can only take 25.
What happens if they run off? Okay, what happens if our porters pull out?
It was a lot to take in.
Day from A.
And it was a bit overwhelming. He was talking about things like what to do if you get kidnapped, what to do when you meet someone with poor gun discipline. It's like, what? Throughout the training, in my mind, I was just like, what am I getting myself into?
And when we're tightening it, it's going to come underneath, okay?
So my main concern was to deliver the jungle aspect. We were going to have a 5-day journey through the Darien Gap.
Take it slow. Yeah, nice and slow. Slow. Feet up.
So it's an extra layer for you at night?
So things like how to set up your tent. Are you going to set it up in an area that could be a flash flood? First aid, you know, what happens if the security guy gets hurt?
This is activated, it will ping and send a signal of where we are. And if we have an emergency, we've got an SOS button to let them know we need a bit of support.
From our editor-in-chief, he said that his #1 priority is our safety.
I'm in a good space, there's security, there's a company, people are watching over me.
It was a relief, really, to know that we could at least offload some of the burdens and focus more on our work.
You've got a lot of cartel controlled areas. A lot of drugs are moved through those areas. So banditry, was a big one.
Everything you have and you see in front of you is kit and equipment you need. There's no luxury items in there.
We try to bring more batteries since we can't charge the batteries in the jungle. And for me, I try to minimize my equipment, like bring a smaller mixers and a smaller boom pole.
Yeah, I have to fine tune my bag. Okay, yeah, sure.
I have to have all the equipment on me all the time. So it all had to fit into a backpack.
So Sean had a good idea before we left for our trip, which is to go for practice hikes together as a team. And in urban Singapore, the closest thing we could find was MacRitchie Reservoir.
So we loaded our bags with the same weight what we're going to carry on those days. We did some pieces to camera, film us walking.
Just to do some test shots, sort of have a taste of what it would be like in the Darien Gap.
I don't like walking long distance, to be honest. We hiked through the MacRitchie and all the way, I think, to Bukit Timah Hill. I think it's very shag. Yeah.
How are you feeling?
Not bad. I cannot imagine if there's 4 days to go.
Are you gonna sleep on a hammock?
Yeah.
I was very fortunate to have a good team with me, very proactive, excited about the trip, but also hungry for the knowledge and training to prepare for what lay ahead.
This is what they call nice weather.
It's good, isn't it?
It was interesting how the schedule was planned. We started in San Diego, which was actually the end of the journey. This is the first time I've seen the border. It was really intimidating. It was about 20, 30 feet high steel wall. So you will see miles and miles of wall. Then there will be a small gap.
Coming again. People are coming through.
We saw a group of people crossing the wall right in front of us. And to our surprise, it was pretty easy for them to cross, Like, there's a small opening, so everyone just walk through it and you made it in the US now.
China!
That was also the first time we came into direct contact with the Chinese migrants who's just made it, and to hear them tell their stories, and they were so open and honest about it.
No jackets, no hoodies.
It's okay. No, it's a jacket, is it? 杰克不行，厚的外套不行，厚的外套不行。
I think I got very, very emotional afterwards, particularly because of this migrant. And this guy who was just wearing nothing inside but a puffer jacket on the outside, and he was holding the passport in front of him. And the Border Patrol officer was taking a photo. And I just felt in that moment what was going across his mind. Was this humiliation really worth it? What put you in this place that sort of gave me a perspective I didn't have before, that they're all somebody's mom, dad, daughter, son, siblings. And I think that, again, goes to challenge my idea of what I thought I'd know about my country and my people. What has to happen for these people to be here, to be willing to go through this?
Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to be the first to welcome you to Quito, Ecuador. The local time here is approximately 1:07.
Why Ecuador is because that's really the only country in the Americas that allows Chinese passport holders to enter visa-free. So that had to be their starting point, and then they sort of make a step towards the US. So our plan has always been that we would fly to Ecuador cold without knowing anyone, just being able to identify key locations. And we try to meet them there, talk to them, try to sign up for the idea.
Paul was in charge of the local security, and he just went on and on about all the bad things that happened.
Ecuador is mainly just go through drug country. You always hear very early in the morning, very late, that someone got kidnapped. It's not that safe.
But when you looked around, it looked like any other city. That's when I realized, okay, I have to cannot let my guard down.
We've just seen in the news recently how things changed very quickly there. The country literally went from being peaceful to like a coup was going on overnight. Dynamics change very, very quickly.
So the plan was for me and Wei to check in at the Chinese guest house and stay there for the duration of our time in Quito.
The owner was incredibly generous for no good reason at all. I hadn't met her. I just called her on the phone and she said, hey, if you want to come hang out and talk to people, approach them. And if they're willing to be filmed, it's not my business to stop you. So Jonathan and I moved to the guest house.
As soon as we checked in and the people in the guest house knew that we were journalists, people were tense. They were like, why are they journalists here? It's not lawful what they're doing. But what Wei-Tu did, which I thought was ingenious, was on my trip up to Quito, she told me to get barbecue sliced pork, also known as bakwa, as gifts. And as soon as I brought out the bakwa, it was like we were their long-lost family and friends. They were like, oh yes, bakwa! Talk to me, what do you need? And immediately people opened up like that.
It's not people are easy to buy off, but people appreciate a little bit of warmth and generosity from a stranger.
Just on that first night alone, she managed to get 4 people on board to be on our show. The profiles that opened up to us, one was a chef.
看到鸟没？来上人了，来上飞，你看，这看到没？那是我那飞的。啥给我钱我挣啥，我干啥？你啥都行，你炒这也行，你说开这也行。你说光你只要你钱多，你他妈那么都干，真的。
多少钱你才满意
？1万块钱。
1万美金呢？
对呀。
1个月。
嗯。
1万美金，你知道多高吗？
哎呀，他是开大货车。
本地我看网上，就像你这个飞呢，我也看了。
本地
开大货的，好像是开大货车的。
人本地大学毕业那些职位也没有你那么高。
He just had this idea. Somebody must have told him if you become a truck driver, it's $10,000 US. In the US, that was why he was making the trip. It does give you this unsettling feeling that a lot of them were getting into something they didn't understand, they will later come to regret.
Things were changing constantly. So we end up in a bus interchange and they were saying you need a permit, but we're already there. So what do? I just hope for the best and keep my equipment simple, kind of act like a tourist and film them. It's odd, it's 2 Chinese profiles and an Indian guy following them. I'm hoping they think I'm some YouTuber following them.
When they got to the bus station, our crew joined the family on the coach and I followed in a minibus. So once that journey started, I was very, very surprised to see how fast these coaches were travelling. And we're not talking about a straight motorway, These were mountainous roads with sharp bends, with large drops. The coach that we were following were taking these turnings at phenomenal speeds, and you could see the lean on these coaches. We were struggling to keep up. But I was thinking then, do I make the decision to pull out in front of the coach, stop the coach, remove my team, or is this just how fast all the coaches travel? So once we got to the Ecuador-Colombian border crossing, there's a lot of people there. There's a lot of transactions taking place.
Our profiles, they got through the border in about 5 minutes. All they had to do was buy a ticket from a smuggler, and he brought them across and they managed to get a cab. So for us, we obviously had to cross through legal means. The border guards have never heard of the Singaporean passport because I don't imagine many Singaporeans making that land crossing between Ecuador and Colombia.
Me and Fatli got holed up for nearly about 2 hours because they had issues with our names. Then they brought superiors and other immigration officers down.
Like taking our thumbprint and also like being a scan of our people, like that never happened to me before. Pretty intense actually.
After we crossed the border into Colombia, Sean, the cameraman, myself, and our 2 profiles jumped into a cab to take us to Pasto, which is the closest airport, which would then fly us to the north of Colombia for the next leg of our journey. On the way to Pasto, the taxi just veered off into a gated compound. At that point, I was still trying to get a 3G signal on my phone. So I couldn't even share my location with Nas, our security advisor. And the taxi driver gestured to us that he needed me to take our passports and followed him into the building. So remember, this is the point where we have lost contact with the rest of the team. They had no GPS coordinates of where we were, and all we could do was go with the flow. When I was walking into the building, my mind was just racing. Am I going to be detained here? Shan and the profile's going to be okay? We went up the flight of stairs. They took our passports, entered our information, asked for some money, which we had no choice but to give. And then the person handed the taxi driver a slip of paper.
I was pretty worried. I was hoping Jonathan comes out, and he came out, after about 10 minutes. And I said, okay, let's go. So I actually don't even know why we were there, what was happening. So it was some kind of a permission to drive through the city. But the way it happened, it was pretty scary.
We got incredibly worried after that one day of shoot with Uncle Wang and Auntie Lan on their trip from Quito to Pasto, because they were so quiet. They said nothing. But at the transit airport, Bogota airport, we met this family from China at Chengdu. Mom, dad, Lucy. In a way, they're quite different from the other migrants.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
They're extremely warm, chatty, outgoing people. You don't get a lot of these people in China. And they're extremely trusting people. They open up in no time.
OK。好吧。对，我尊重你的选择嘛。我也是来过这种飞机。No, wife number 1, number 2. Kiddo.
They have this beautiful relationship between the 2 parents that evolved over time, and then gradually they took over the show. They became our main profiles, and they really just carried it all the way through.
Standing on the pier.
All right.
When we were on the bus to Nicockley after the flight, the fixer who has access to the Darien Gap, and he just left a voice message.
Carlos has just left me a message and said the guy who runs the area has told his contact that he doesn't want to see any journalist on any route. Not Querétaro, not Cartagena, not Akandi.
By that time, I had a crew of 8 people traveling halfway around the world.
And he called me just to ask whether he should still turn up. I've told him to come anyway.
You still go ahead
Just
with
proceed
the
as normal.
interviews? Okay.
I should at least get him to Nicockley, get him to go see these people in person and see if, you know, we could still stand a chance. So it was, yeah, it was a bit of a shock. So Nicockley really is the jump-off point for migrants in order to enter the Darien. They want to be rested, they want to be mentally prepared, and then they need to buy a lot of stuff for that jungle crossing.
So a lot of the shops were dedicated to selling things that the migrants would need in the Darien Gap. Portable stoves, tents, tarps, hiking boots, the sulfur powder that you're supposed to put around your tent to prevent snakes from entering.
They go to a shop, they buy food, and the next minute they cross over, they are buying some gear.
It was a very chaotic moment for us. We were constantly on the move.
It was pretty tough for me. At this point, you know, there was only me as one main cameraman, and I had to get the producer, Jonathan, he had to jump in and help me get shots. So everybody had to be hands on deck.
哎，先去取钱，他们你想不安全不安全？我们先去钱取来，一起把他送回去，就这里取，就对面。
For me, I have to carry my boom, and we are definitely like attracting attention.
It's an area that economy is built on the trafficking of migrants. It's a lot of money brought into that area, and they are very sensitive of having their operations exposed. We'd be walking through an area, you'd see a male, 20 years old, up to about 40 years old. They'd be straight onto their phones, looking at us, pointing, sending feedback to whoever their bosses are. We stopped at one point, didn't we, and we had a little chat and say, we've got to lower our profile. We're standing out, you know, which you're going to with a boom mic and other bits of equipment. We had to distance ourselves from the families as well, in the sense that we were jeopardizing their opportunity to get transport.
No, I'm having a shot here, please. Wait.
And then I looked at what we have filmed so far, and I was confident we got a story here. We just have to work around, you know. We sat down with the producer and I said, let's keep going. You know, let's try to catch them on the other side.
We flew to Panama on the sort of early next day in the morning, and you know, I didn't. By that point, I got over the emotional part of it, the worry and anxiety. Partly also because it took so long. The family was making the trip so quickly. I knew even if we went in, we were never caught up.
Wei.
明天我们是先坐那个独木舟到达那个公路边。
那我们明天见哈。
We immediately made plans to fly to Panama City and drive down to the border with the Darien province.
So The tricky thing about Panama is that you need a permit to access what they call migrant reception centers at the exit of the Darien. The net result was, in the end, we didn't have the permit. We waited for days, we were hoping for it, we didn't have it, and then that was that.
And so the best we could do after talking to the locals was to send myself, our fixer, and one security advisor on a long boat from Puerto Limon, which is where the migrants would end their Darien Gap journey, upriver, as far as the radio could get signal with base at the port.
Coming. Migrants.
The second boat is time for that.
The boats are coming in now.
Third is Chinese, fourth one coming now. Stand by. There's Chinese as well. Our family is not together.
And suddenly I heard, Xie Feng Hong! Xie Feng Hong, which is my Chinese name. And the last time I heard that name was in secondary school. And I zoomed in and it was the profile. It was one of the most surreal experiences.
Fourth boat is our family.
They're shouting my name.
Yeah. Fourth boat is our family.
Which one?
Repeat, the fourth boat is our family.
There was like a 15 minutes gap. So the moment he saw them, he signaled me. So that's when I took off the drone, tried to catch them coming in. These boats were really fast. So by the time I'm landing the drone, the boats were already in the jetty. I gave the controller to Nas, took my camera, ran to the area where they were coming off, and with Wedu, we catch them coming off the boat.
That was an exhilarating moment, really it was. Like, seeing all of them make the trip safe and sound. And that was the first time we saw them after about a week. And I was worried about how they were coping, whether they were healthy and this. But the first thing they said to us was, where we brought you sunglasses. And it just speaks volumes about the type of people they are. They radiate kindness and love and try to really take care of other people. So now the sunglasses rests on my shelf with a little tag, survivor of the Darien Gap.
小心点，小心点。
路上最难的是哪一段？
那个哥伦比亚从卡雷托海滩截至地狱模式。前天晚上，听说失踪了27个人。
27个人失踪了。
失踪了，对。
什么事情失踪？
就是船翻了。
所以你觉得后面的人，你会跟他们讲不要来了？
已经说了。
对，不管为了什么目标，你搭上生命是的。
我在山上看见尸体了。
山上有尸体？你们走的那条线都有尸体啊？
我看见他的用那个帐篷，然后帐篷是这个布帐篷的布盖身上，就全部盖。
其实这里面有很多幸运成分啊，不幸运的就挂了，幸运的就过去了。
How these migrants recover from that experience, was it the type of resilience that they have is quite amazing. We were in a slightly odd situation that we are not vested in them arriving in the US. That's not what we were doing, and that's not what this documentary is about. We didn't want them to either die in an accident or get mugged or get assaulted or worse. And that's a balance we had to keep to for professional ethical reasons. A lot of times we couldn't offer them any help, but even though we were in a position to help, it was emotionally difficult. We're to the north of the bridge, where we've been told is safe for us to hang around. South of the bridge is smuggler-controlled territory. In Tapachula, we had an interview with a smuggler who has this sort of door-to-door service. He would take you from southern Mexico to wherever you want to be in the United States for $9,000 US. So we found a hotel which we could go in and set up, and he could go in, and we gave him assurances that his face would not be shown, his voice would be distorted.
Myself and the rest of the team managed to go there, do a full recce.
If he's not willing to be mic'd up, then
I'm sure he will.
he will have to be in there.
I mean, yes, he is.
Okay.
We had a team discussion, team briefing, like who to be in the room and who not to be. So it's only a few of us in the room.
Try and stick to the script as questions are discussed. The code, the word we're going to use from myself and the team, if we need to go, which means stop what you're doing, we're leaving. No more questions or nothing, we're at the door.
Pineapple?
Guacamole.
Nadie dice nada, salimos.
Guacamole.
Guacamole.
Guacamole. Si tú ves algo peligroso en cualquier momento, tú dices guacamole, nadie va a decir nada, vamos a salir.
Okay.
¿Va?
Okay.
Es palabra de seguro. Look, you enter to the door, we enter, you enter to the door, you pass the reception without talking to anyone, you take right and the first door on the right.
He said, if they don't listen, I have no choice. I beat them up. He said, you must have heard that we rape women. We don't rape women.
Sí han habido ciertos favores, porque a veces hay hombres que quieren sobrepasarse, ellas por sentirse un poco más protegidas, entonces se acercan más a uno y le pueden dar a uno sexo consensuado a cambio de que ellas vayan en un mejor lugar en el carro, que duerman en una habitación solo con mujeres y cosas así, precisamente por eso, para sentirse más protegidas.
And I thought that was heavy. That's just thinking about how already it's such a difficult experience, but specifically for women. It was so difficult for the migrants to get out of Tapachula. They made plans. The plans were frustrated. They were set back. In the end, we decided we're just going to go to northern Mexico, the city called Tijuana, on the border with California, and we will wait. We would just wait for them to arrive. When we flew into Tijuana, the airport, I have a Hong Kong passport, but it says Chinese Hong Kong passport with a Chinese national emblem on it. I didn't need a visa to go to Mexico. It was a domestic flight, but there was passport control. And they were just pulling everybody with a Chinese passport. You go sit there, you go sit there.
Señorita, allá por favor, inside. We go inside.
So we got pulled into this room, like full of Chinese migrants, and we were told to just sit there, we'll come back to you. And then, of course, they looked at our passports with the visa stamps. They had to let us go. So they had to call us out in front of everybody. And as we were making our way move across the room, everybody was like, which smuggler did you use? How much money did you bring? In Tijuana, what we had hoped to do was to catch the group of migrants we had been following actually crossing the border. No, on my map, it goes all the way. This goes all the way. All right. So then eventually we just decided, why don't we just go stake out there? So our local fixer, Gabby, who was very experienced on that border, went with us.
For example, if they think we are with families, for sure they get mad because they can confuse and think we are trafficking people, families, like a competition.
It's just another kilometer down that way.
My concern on the day was who are going to be coming down these tracks. We'd seen early on in the trip from the other side of the wall, and remembering these people are all armed. Also, it puts us in a vulnerable position as well. Remember, we're on foot. Again, we're not armed.
There's 2 Chinese people there. I already see.
Wait. Let me clear first.
This is it.
And we're going to an area and where we want to covertly film without causing them any reason to panic or to suspect us of exposing their operation. From a security aspect, the decision was made quite early once we got to the wall and the gap where the people actually crossed through, that should anything happen, that we would cross into the American side.
3 more steps. You're in America.
And we waited there for about 3-4 hours, really, but no migrants came. A guy rode a motorbike, had a look, left. Somebody drove a SUV, came, had a look, and left. And eventually Gabby said, you know, maybe this is a self-defeating mission because clearly these people were sent by the smugglers to come and check on us. They're watchers. They know you're here. They can't figure out who you are. That's why they're not sending the migrants across. So Mom, Dad, and Lucy are currently still in Los Angeles. Lucy has enrolled in a local high school. I saw from the photos Mom posted. She got 100 on her maths exam, as you would expect a Chinese child to do. And Mom and Dad are both working. Mom, she was the chef at some sort of ramen restaurant. So Dad mostly takes care of things at home, do the chores, drive Lucy to school. Uncle Wang is working at a Chinese restaurant in Texas. Jia worked as a cook in China, so he's got a job cooking at a barbecue restaurant somewhere in New Jersey. Chef is also cooking. Chef is making good money, you know, because it's a skilled job. He said it's making 6,000 US a month. So he's probably the best paid among the lot. Auntie Lan is working in Texas, I believe. I think fortunately, in the end, bad things didn't happen, because otherwise it would have been so much worse for all of us, emotionally and psychologically.
Definitely an eye-opening for me. It made me more confident. Despite the lack of sleep, rest, we still managed to do our thing as a team.
These migrants who take on this journey are so incredibly resilient, and it made a lot of my problems that I face in my everyday life feel so insignificant.
And the team. I was among a really fantastic, amazing crew and, team players.
I enjoyed it. I think we had some good fun off camera. The morale was good. So I learned a bit of English. Everybody's, la. It's going to be good, la.
I think this project was unique and it's a huge undertaking. I just felt it's such a strong story. It reveals so much about the times, and I'm happy about that.